Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Spurs Up Show. This is episode 27. We are going to be recapping the Gamecocks' 34-27 win over the Vanderbilt Commodores. And Tyler Clark, it's one of my favorite one of my favorite weeks of the year. It is Georgia week. We're going to be previewing the game against the Dogs. The Gamecocks travel to Athens this Saturday to take on the Georgia Bulldogs. But first, if you do want to follow the show, be sure to check us out on iTunes at the Spurs Up Show. Be sure to go there, rate and subscribe. Tell us you like, tell us you don't like. Please give us all your feedback. We do appreciate that. Be sure to follow us on Twitter as well at ArmchairSCar. It's going to be at ArmchairSCAR for all of our latest breaking news there for the Gamecock Sports and also the show as well. Be sure to check us out on Instagram at ArmchairSCarolina. And also, this is a podcast brought to you by the Armchair All-Americans, ArmchairAllAmericans.com. Be sure to check us out there for all of your latest breaking Gamecock news. Localizing your sports coverage content there, of course. Be sure to check us out there for the Gamecocks as well as all of your other college sports teams, as well as your professional teams as well. So without ado, I do introduce myself. I am Chris Phillips, as always, your host. And always, I am joined, as always, by my colleague, Tyler Clark. Tyler, want to get your reactions, of course. First want to check in. How you been? How was your weekend overall? And how you doing this afternoon here?
Good. I watched a lot of baseball and football. Watching baseball right now. Hopefully the Astros can finish this thing off so Verlander can get a ring.
Yeah, we got a lot of good baseball. A lot of World Series going on. I do like that. But we're going to get to some Gamecock football. So just jumping right into it. The Gamecocks get the 34-27 win on homecoming Saturday afternoon in Williams-Brice Stadium. Maybe a little too close for comfort, if you will. But either way, Gamecocks get the win. Get to 6-2. More importantly, get to bowl eligibility in Will Muschamp's second overall season. Which is a huge jump. Go undefeated, Tyler. I don't know if you're in this. Go undefeated in October for the first time since 1984. First time they've gone undefeated in that month. So a long time for sure. But I want to get your initial reactions, Tyler, kind of your takeaway. I know you weren't able to go to the game. Neither was I, but I know you were able to watch as well. We texted a little bit during the game. What were your initial reactions from the game? What did you take away, if anything, from the Gamecocks win over Vanderbilt?
They were able to run the ball. They were able to throw the ball a little bit. Jake Bentley ran the ball. And just when you think they have their most complete game on offense, the defense doesn't play well at all. So I don't really know what much to think. They kind of just flipped. It was kind of weird. I didn't expect that at all. Vanderbilt, not known for being good on offense, at least. I'll say that. Kyle Shermer had a heck of a game. He really did make a lot of really good throws, a lot of 50-50 balls that were won. 2 or 3 of them against Rashad Fenton. So I don't know really what to think. Hopefully that's not a sign of things to come, because if the defense plays like that this last stretch of the year, it could go pretty bad.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I do, definitely agree with you on, want to get into is the offense. And for sure, Jake Bentley, okay day, pedestrian day, throwing the ball 19 of 29, 174, 1 touchdown. But I definitely think, I want to jump the first thing that we talked about was A.J. Turner. And the one tweet that I saw that I really liked from you is it looks like A.J. Turner got, a couple miles an hour faster, got a step or two faster over the bye week. It was crazy to see him. 15 carries, 121, averaged 8.1 a carry, had a touchdown. He's definitely a guy. Looked like a guy, man, that, especially in that speed sweep, but overall in general, was able to cut the burners on and, really get separation when he needed to.
Yeah, it was crazy seeing, we started to see it against Tennessee, I guess, but the speed sweep a lot more instead of that kind of RPO, slow run the ball straight up the middle kind of idea. Obviously, they saw something in practice. Hopefully that's what it was at least, and they just didn't run that randomly out there. But A.J. Turner looks like a completely different football player, in my opinion. He was able to catch some passes out of the backfield. That one where Jake Bentley kind of floated it over his head. He knew he was going to get absolutely smoked at the end of that play, but still caught it. And I love seeing that. And I think A.J. Turner is definitely going to be the guy going forward.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, especially, with the injury of Rico Dowdle, which is something I was going to get into later. But, yeah, I mean, it's funny. A.J. Turner, kind of the forgotten about guy. Tyson only had 8 carries for 13 yards. And obviously, Bobby Bentley said before the season they were going to go with the hot hand. And, obviously, if whoever's showing the hot hand in practice and whoever's kind of showing, that the pop that week, give the ball to. And A.J. Turner, it must have been that guy because he had a great day. Obviously, 8 yards a carry. I mean, just had a fantastic day. I'll tell you the one thing, Tyler, that impressed me the most, and I literally said this. I was watching the game on my phone, actually. You know, I wasn't there, but I was watching the game, and I told somebody I was with, the thing to me that could change this South Carolina offense is the fact that Jake Bentley is getting more confident keeping the football on the read option. I definitely think that's something that we talked about, Kurt Roper and the predictability of this offense. Obviously, it's just the same formation, the same play over and over and over again. Jake Bentley, and even on the touchdown, Tyler, I know you know what I'm talking about. The 19-yard touchdown, the first play of the game, where he had what he said was "quote unquote" the slowest juke move. What his teammates said. But on that specific play, I specifically remember watching that play and thinking when he went to go hand, I'm like, that's a handoff, 100%. And when he kept it, I was shocked. And then when he didn't slide, I was even more shocked.
See, I thought the juke was a slide. I 100%.
I thought he should have slid. I almost thought he should. I was like, he's going to slide 100% because we all saw Joe Flacco get lit up on Thursday night. I was like, he's 100% going to slide way early. And granted, he wasn't facing an NFL linebacker, but either way, when I saw that play, I was like, that's 100% a run, a handoff, whatever. To me, the person I was with, I told him, I said, hey, that's the kind of play to me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler, I may be overreacting, but to me, that's the kind of play that could change the entire South Carolina offense. The threat of Jake Bentley keeping that read option handoff, it changes. We've talked about RPOs before, the run pass options. To me, it changes that entire dynamic. It adds another dynamic, and maybe that's what Kurt Roper was talking about as far as execution.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like Jake Bentley lied to us last week in his media availability when he said during the bye week they looked at him running the ball or moving around in the pocket, and they said, or he said something along the lines of, I was doing that too much and I need to just stay in the pocket a little more. And then you come out the next game and you run 2 read options basically for touchdowns. And on the second one, I don't know if you saw a replay of it, but Hayden Hurst blocked a guy 10 yards into the end zone on that play. And Ortre Smith held a block in the end zone.
By far his best blocking game.
And Zach Bailey just absolutely murdered a guy. I don't remember what play it was, but he straight destroyed the guy. So the offensive line played a huge role in just running the ball in general on Saturday. And I think you saw, what having Zach Bailey back on the offensive line does for him. Just as a unit, they played so much better.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, getting Bailey back, getting Corey Helens back, I think was huge. I mean, I know what play you're talking about. It's been on Twitter, obviously, but Zach Bailey just completely pancaking his man. I mean, putting him in the ground on an A.J. Turner run. But, yeah, I mean, just, Jake Bentley able to keep his feet, kind of make a couple moves, and at least just – give the defense something to think about with that play. I think it's just huge. But like you said, we talked about it last week. Those 2 O-linemen coming back, those 3 O-linemen, Malik Young as well. It was just huge. You could see the difference. The Gamecock, but the craziest thing, the Gamecocks, you could see for the third straight game could run the football, which is something that they haven't been able to do all season. Another guy that really impressed me, Tyler, kind of outside of the running game. Shi Smith continues to improve. He had the big catch, which was probably one of the best plays of the game. The RPO play where Bentley play actions, throws it to Shi Smith down the field, wide open.
A perfect wheel route. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah, just a perfect play. On that 36-yard touchdown, Shi Smith finished the day, 5 catches, 76 yards, 1 touchdown. And you look at the guys leading the way, Tyler. I mean, you got Shi Smith, freshman, 5 for 76. Ortre Smith, freshman, 3 for 35. Hayden Hurst, who, is a young player but is eligible for the draft, 4 for 31. A.J. Turner, 4 for 24. Brian Edwards, 2 for 15. One of his more quiet days. But, it's got to be an encouraging sign for Gamecock fans to see Shi Smith. I definitely see him without a doubt being one of the, maybe the next superstar for South Carolina, kind of that Deebo Samuel role and filling that that speed slot role, if you will.
So I don't mean to get off topic here, but there was a tweet that I saw that talked about our boy Kurt, and I had to go find it in my likes because I thought it was pretty funny. This guy tweeted, "Meanwhile, in Columbia, South Carolina, a second-year coach is doing a hell of a job, and it got his team to 6-2 today. Maybe I wasn't wrong after all." And that's some Florida fan. And a guy underneath it responds, "That guy Roper's pretty good. Too bad he wasn't here sooner." So the Vanderbilt game makes him look like a freaking genius. Apparently, I thought they had a great game plan going in, and I think that game could have gotten out of hand if it was a complete game.
Yeah, and the Gamecocks, their highest scoring output, at least on offense, totally on offense. 34 points for the offense, 24 in the first half. I mean, by far, Roper's best job on offense in the first half. I don't want to dog Vanderbilt too much, but, you got to look at who you're playing. I mean, obviously, Vandy's not great on defense, but
there are worse teams. I mean, Arkansas.
Exactly. There are worse teams. Any positive momentum this team can get, and especially, I mean, again, with all due respect, but with Kurt Roper, any positive momentum this team can get on offense is definitely great. Again, I agree with you. I mean, what was it? 24-13 at half. You win 34-27. You like to finish a little. You only had 3 points in the fourth quarter. You like to finish a little bit better, and that'll kind of loosen the defense as well, Tyler. So, with the defense, I think we can both agree. Definitely, like you said, not their best game. The pass rush really wasn't there. I don't think Kyle Shermer's jersey got dirty all day long. Fenton Island was definitely camped out on this weekend.
It was open. It was open.
It was a little bit open. I think, Rashad was due for kind of an average game. But, Tyler, I kind of want to address this too. I hate to say it. I think the defense got a little fat and happy this week. I really did. The bye week, I think, hurt the defense. I think they kind of read their press clippings. I think they kind of got a little overconfident. Give credit to Vanderbilt, like Will Muschamp said. Kyle Shermer had a great game, 27-49, 333, 4 touchdowns. Definitely not what I would have expected, but I think this is kind of a different of a Vanderbilt team. Ralph Webb, again, for some reason, South Carolina just shuts him down.
I think he got hurt in the game, actually. He went out, I think, the first half.
Yeah, I mean, either way, 6 carries, 31 yards, didn't do anything. Their leading rusher had 41. So
that was their fullback, too.
Yeah, Dallas Rivers.
Yep. Didn't have a carry all season coming into the game.
Yeah, Dallas Rivers, not a whole lot going on. But yeah, I mean, overall this defense, Tyler, let's talk about what you thought overall the defensive performance. Like I said, again, I don't think it was their best game overall, but are you concerned moving forward from this defensive performance? Do you think it was just kind of either a lapse in concentration or kind of just kind of a one-off situation?
Yeah, I don't want to overreact because obviously South Carolina won the game. But Muschamp said a lot about it after the game at his press conference, and he was talking about how Vanderbilt's only given up 10 sacks all season. So I guess their offensive line played pretty well, but he also said a lot of their protections involved their running back and their tight end. So when you have seven guys blocking an offensive line, a defensive line, I guess you have time to throw in that situation. But then again, you don't have a tight end or a running back to throw to. So I guess that explains at least the pass rush. Secondary didn't play that well. I'd say, I don't want to overreact again, but Rashad Fenton, the touchdown was kind of a fluke. So I don't want to say that he's gone bad yet, but he definitely allowed some cushion on a couple plays. And the other play was a fluke too, where it was inside like the 5, where the guy caught it against his helmet. So I guess I'm talking myself out of saying they played bad at this point. But the linebackers I thought played well. Sky Moore had a really good game. Yeah, I'm not overreacting. I don't think this is anything that's going to keep going moving forward. Obviously, it might be the same thing this weekend when you're playing the best team in the country, according to certain people. But we'll see.
Yeah, and one thing I was going to agree with you on is I think that, yeah, you can't overreact just because there were some guys that kind of had some uncharacteristic type games. Rashad Fenton obviously has had a great season. You're not going to take – we're not going to take one game out of 8 and say that, he's a bad player. He's obviously not. I think that, there were a couple plays that went either way. There were, a couple penalties that also Sky Moore maybe should have had an interception that was called back against a pass interference. Take it for what you want, but
a lot of interesting extracurricular activity during this game.
Right, lot of interesting flags thrown. I mean, just the officiating was very, very suspect at best, and that's really all you can say about it. I mean, yeah, it's really all you can say about it. I mean, it's really. But yeah, again, South Carolina comes out with the dub, 34-27. Again, I do agree with you. I think that this is kind of an anomaly. I don't think that it's something that South Carolina fans should totally worry about. I mean, the Gamecocks, they sort of had that more so bend but don't break mentality. Held Vanderbilt to 13 points in the first half. I mean, it's just something where I wouldn't look too deep into it, if you will. So, with that being said, we'll kind of move into, the key takeaways from the game. Tyler, I'll get some of mine in there. Again, I don't want to get touched too much into it, but I talked about it earlier. I think the quarterback keeper with Jake Bentley with the spread option, I think could really change the offense. I just think with, Jake Bentley's not the most athletic guy. He's not Connor Shaw. He might not even be Dylan Thompson. I don't know. But I feel like we've talked about it all season, and I know I've thought it all season, but Jake Bentley, and it started with Tennessee a little bit. We saw it a little bit with Tennessee. But Jake Bentley keeping the football and that spread option could really, really be a game changer. He doesn't have to do what he did Saturday. He doesn't have to run for 50 yards. He has to run for 2 touchdowns. But keeping the ball there, being able to give the defense the threat that he might keep it, he might run with it, I think could be a huge, huge factor for this offense. Also, we talked about Zach Bailey and Corey Helms being huge difference makers in the offensive line. Keeping them healthy will be huge. DJ Wanham continued, Tyler, to make a huge play on Saturday, the blocked extra point. Even in a day like Saturday, the defense didn't play well. He continues to be all over the field. He's a guy that just absolutely excels. And then, Tyler, my last one, honestly, AJ Turner. He's a guy we maybe kind of slept on, but he deserves a football, man. I mean, he's a guy that, like you said, showed an explosiveness maybe we haven't seen from him. I mean, really, he kind of got buried on the depth chart and I wrote about this in our article today, but kind of got buried on the depth chart with Rico Dowdle and Tyson Williams. And, with Rico going down, you got, I figured Tyson Williams get maybe the majority, if not all the carries, but AJ Turner with a huge day, showed that burst of speed. He shows a toughness in running as well. So, I think AJ, we're going to see a lot more of him moving forward. I think deservedly so. So,
yeah. My key takeaway is pretty much just the offensive line. You see what a complete offensive line gets you. They can dominate a running game. They can give time for passes. They can open you up for different plays, such as that kind of read option type play. So, that's pretty much the only key takeaway I have. I can say our kicking game certainly improved. I think that puts Parker White over 500 on the season. He's definitely got a little swagger back. He definitely missed one, but it was a different miss than what we've seen throughout the season. The other misses missed by like a whole field goal lead. This one barely missed. So I'll give him benefit of the doubt on that one. I think Parker White has definitely got his swagger back.
Yeah, I completely agree. I forgot to touch on that. Yeah, Parker White becoming sort of a weapon. I mean, hey, South Carolina obviously take it.
He's
somewhat of a – you can somewhat rely on and make
there
a
we
kick.
go, yeah.
It's
serviceable field goal.
Serviceable field goal kicker, which is more than South Carolina could say, 2-3 weeks ago.
Yep,
so
agreed.
I think Gamecock fans will all take it. But we're going to move into some Armchair All-American game balls. Tyler, I'll go first with this one. I'll start on offense. I'm going to say Shi Smith just because, the young freshman, great to see him get involved. Had the big touchdown catch, 5 for 76, led the receivers in catches, overall yards. Had a touchdown as well, averaged 15 yards a catch. So great to see him get involved. I think Shi is a guy who's just developing more and more, going to become kind of the next Deebo Samuel, if you will. On defense, going to give it to Chris Lamons. Again, I think he's a guy I've talked about before, but I feel like a little bit not underappreciated, but since his move to the safety position, doesn't get talked about quite as much. Had 10 total tackles, 8 solo tackles, 2 pass deflections. So, Chris had a good game. I think like he's a really a leader on that defense, especially in that secondary. So definitely want to give that game ball to Chris Lamons.
All right, mine on offense, definitely going to go to AJ Turner. I think that's the first 100-yard rusher we've had this season, which says a lot. He's also scored a touchdown, I believe. Did he?
He did,
okay.
yes.
Yeah,
AJ Turner,
just making sure. All right, so 121 yards, averaging over 8 yards a carry. We haven't seen a performance like that all season on the ground. And on defense, you have to give it to Chris Lamont. I don't think anyone would disagree with you there.
Absolutely. So with that being said, Tyler, again, like I said earlier, we're going to move to one of my favorite weeks of the year, one of my favorite opponents of the year. It's been for probably, probably 13, 14 years, one of my favorite opponents of the year. It's Georgia week. It's Georgia hate week. You know what that means.
What is that smell? To hell with Georgia. To hell with Georgia. To hell with Georgia. The cesspool of the South.
It's Georgia week, Tyler. It's Georgia week.
Yep, that says
the
it all.
Gamecocks, that says it all. To hell with Georgia. The Gamecocks travel to Athens, Georgia, to take on the, I guess now number 1 ranked Georgia Bulldogs from the college football playoff poll at 3:30 Eastern on CBS in Athens, Georgia at Sanford Stadium. The Bulldogs opened as I think about a 22.5-point favorite. They now sit at about 24.5. Over-under is right at 45. Georgia leads the overall series 49-18-2. And the last time they met, obviously, Georgia won last year in Columbia in a delayed game that got moved to Sunday.
Very weird game, too.
Very, very strange. Just a very strange day and very strange weekend. 28-14. Georgia enters this game as the number 2 team in the country, 8-0 overall, 4-0 in the SEC, and they are coached by Kirby Smart. So, Tyler, I want to get your initial feelings, initial reactions coming in this game. The Gamecocks, again, 6-2, 4-2 in the SEC, have a lot of momentum. They've won 3 straight. I want to get your initial feelings coming in this matchup with Georgia.
They're not good. I'll say that. It just I know that Georgia, you just have it in your heart that you feel like they're going to lose one of these next 3 tough games they have against South Carolina, Auburn, and Georgia Tech. You feel like they're going to lose one of them just because that's such a Georgia thing to do. But then you look at it on paper, and it's just not a good matchup for South Carolina at all. Their front 7 on defense is so good, so physical, so big, and they've been pretty much on that defense for 3 years, it feels like now. And then you look at them on offense, and they're just absolutely dominant running the ball. There's a stat I have saved in my phone that I found the other day. Saquon Barkley against Power 5 defenses versus Sonny Michel. Saquon Barkley has 114 carries for 582 yards and 7 touchdowns against Power 5 defenses. Sonny Michel has 58 carries for 542 yards and 7 touchdowns. And that's their backup running back. So unless South Carolina can just all of a sudden just not give up explosive runs against Georgia like it seems like they always do, it could be a very long day. But if you stop that run, then you make Jake Fromm throw the ball a little bit, and that's where it could get interesting. But I don't know if South Carolina's front 7's ready for Nick Chubb and Sonny Michel.
Absolutely, yeah. I think a huge key to the game would be stopping the run for the South Carolina Gamecocks, and we'll get kind of into the keys of the game a little bit later. But South Carolina, the Georgia comes in this game again, like we talked about. They're a huge favorite. I mean, they're an absolutely huge favorite. And which is funny because this South Carolina-Georgia game has always been a really, Tyler, I'm sure a really close game. I mean, it's been a close game. But this year, Georgia, they haven't beaten an SEC opponent by less than 25 points. Closest was Missouri. Missouri kind of had them on the ropes there for a little bit, 28-28. Late in the second quarter, Georgia pulled away, had about 700 yards of offense. Tyler, I ask you, what do you feel like South Carolina has to do? What do you think they have to do even to have the chance to pull the upset?
They have to play a perfect game on both sides of the ball. And I'm not exaggerating whatsoever. You can't turn the ball over. You can't give up long third downs. You can't give up a score on special teams. It has to be perfect. I don't think there's any other way to it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually do agree with you. I think South Carolina's got to play their A+ game. Georgia might have to play their B-. But the biggest key to the game is going to be line of scrimmage again, and South Carolina being able to stop the run. I mean, listen, I don't want to take anything away from Georgia. Georgia's a great team. They deserve to be where they are. They deserve to be number 2, number 1, whatever they are. But for the first come first, you've got to stop the running game. And it's obviously easier said than done with the two-headed monster with, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel. They got other guys even behind that. But South Carolina, to me, what you've got to do, stack the box, sell on the run, make Jake Fromm beat you in the passing game. Tyler, we talked a little bit off air, but, Chris Lamons with the comments, I'm not sure what I made him. But Chris Lamons with the comments saying that basically, there was a question asked, what are you more concerned with on Georgia's offense, to pass, the run? And he said, the run. They can't pass. And listen, I understand Georgia fans freaking out. They want to call out South Carolina. They want to say, we're going to show you how much we can pass. But here's the thing. He kind of has a point, because Jake Fromm has completed 10 or more passes 3 times in 8 games. So, and he hasn't had to complete more. Don't get me wrong. He hasn't had to. But he completed 4 passes against Florida. So, to me, and I'd argue to say South Carolina maybe has the best secondary of all the secondaries that Georgia has played, maybe. I mean, I don't know how good Florida's secondary is. I really don't. At this point, I don't know if they're that good at all. But, I think you have to make Jake Fromm throw the football. You have to make him throw it. And I feel like it's kind of the same story. I feel like when South Carolina plays Georgia every year, make them throw the football. Georgia's got a capable quarterback, but not a quarterback that's going to throw it 50 times and win the game for you. So I think that'll be really, really interesting to see how, Will Muschamp kind of attacks that, what they do on the defensive side of the football. To me, Tyler, one of the biggest keys and one of the biggest things for South Carolina to do, we talked about in the preseason, Jake Bentley, the offense, the team really in general, having some really some struggles on the offensive side, just in general on the road. Not being a great road team. South Carolina's gone to Texas A&M. They've lost. They went to Tennessee and won, which, from what I heard, was a pretty packed Tennessee crowd, not a full Tennessee crowd. But, Tyler, we both know Athens will be rocking Saturday. There's no question. Athens is going to be a madhouse, hornet's nest. But, I think that you really got to be able to take the crowd out of it if you're Jake Bentley, this offense, this defense in general, get a stop. I'll ask you, Tyler, what do you, on offensive side, do you think South Carolina is going to, because they've had some success, do you think South Carolina is going to look to continue to run the football, or do you think they try to expose Georgia's secondary like it was kind of against Missouri? I mean, Missouri was able to throw the football a little bit. And while South Carolina hasn't shown that they want to throw down the field every single play, I would like to personally believe Kurt Roper's at least smart enough to see there's a weakness there with the with Georgia's secondary. So do you think that South Carolina continues to run the football early, try to run clock, or do you think they try to pass early?
I feel like Will Muschamp knows that the only way South Carolina has a chance here is if you can somehow control time of possession. And the only way to achieve that is running the ball. But I also don't feel like they think that they can run the ball on Georgia's front 7. So that's where it puts you in kind of an interesting situation here. Because, I at least myself thought South Carolina was going to come out just pounding the ball against Vanderbilt. And first play on offense, you throw it 27 yards down the field to Shi Smith. So I'm definitely no person to guess what Will Muschamp's going to do. But I feel like the only way South Carolina can compete is if you can control the clock somehow. And the only way to do that is running the ball.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think they're going to try to mix it up a little bit. I think, though, you have to try to mix it up a little bit. I mean, here's the thing. This is the game, man, to mix it up. You're a 24.5-point underdog. Get creative. If you got anything in the past game you haven't used it. Or if you haven't used it yet, use it. Find a way to make sure that, you're getting those plays out, giving Jake Bentley the best possible chance to get the ball down the field, stretch the field a little bit. You've got playmakers outside. Again, I think South Carolina's going to try to stack the box. I think they kind of have to. They have to make Jake Fromm beat them. I just don't think there's any way you can sit back and put 4 guys on the line, 5 on the line, and just say, hey, we're gonna guard both, because I think Nick Chubb and Sony Michel will have a field day if you do that. And they've done that against every team they've played. Again, they haven't won a conference game by less than 25. I'll ask you, Tyler. Obviously Georgia played Florida last week. Beat the brakes off them, 42-7. They got a huge rivalry game next week against Auburn. I think at their place, maybe. I'll ask you, as far as scheduling wise, do you think that this South Carolina game falling between those two rivalry games makes a difference for South Carolina? Is there any chance maybe Georgia's sleeping on the Gamecocks a little bit?
I don't believe in the whole looking ahead thing. I just feel like once you strap on the pads and you get out on the field, you're not in the middle of a play like, oh man, I better conserve energy because we play Auburn next week. I just don't believe that. I've obviously never played football before, but I don't feel like that's a thing.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I think it's a good thing for South Carolina, though. I just think they're, as an athlete, I will say there are times maybe you don't take a team quite as seriously. Maybe you can get a little fat and happy, but yeah, I mean, I think for a game like this, I'll tell you this, which is a very interesting take, I'll say. I talked to a good friend of mine that's from Colorado, not biased at all. I talked a little bit about, I think it was a Sunday. I was like, I won't be surprised if South Carolina's ranked. And I talked to them again Monday, and they said, we talked again. I was like, hey, South Carolina wasn't ranked. They're 30th, whatever. And he actually told me, he said, you know what, South Carolina not being ranked was the best thing that could have happened to South Carolina. I said, what do you mean? He said, because honestly, that's the only chance that Georgia, not saying you guys have zero chance, but if Georgia's going to sleepwalk through this game, South Carolina not being ranked was the best thing that could have happened. Because honestly, if South Carolina would have been ranked, it would have woken Georgia up in a heartbeat, no shot. So, not a chance. So, I agree with you in a sense that it's like, when you strut the pads up, you're ready to go. But I do agree, you get more hype for games than others. And
I agree with playing down to your competition. I just don't believe in looking ahead to the next game per se.
Yeah. I don't know how if you're Georgia, like I feel like this is too big of a rival. It is a rivalry. Whether Georgia fans want to admit it or not, they want to beat the Gamecocks. South Carolina, Georgia, the border rivalry, it's a rivalry, no question. And if they, whatever, they don't want to admit it, that's fine. But, it falls in an interesting spot on the Georgia schedule. That's for damn sure. It falls in a very, very interesting spot. And it'll be interesting how Georgia kind of comes out to it. I mean, South Carolina, they've been preaching physicality all week. Well, Muschamp and preaching the physicality. They're going to have to come out and punch Georgia in the mouth. I mean, there's no question early in the game. If Georgia is kind of even 3/4 of the way going or kind of half asleep, come out, punch Georgia in the mouth, wake them up. Let's go. I'm saying, like, just kind of give that first blow. So, with that being said, we'll kind of move into the key matchups, Tyler. I'll start with mine. I think I'll kind of start from the bottom going up because I think the first one I put is actually the biggest, one of my most interesting ones. One of my biggest ones, USC left tackle Zach Bailey against the UGA pass rush. Obviously, guys like Lorenzo Carter, guys like that they have in the front seven have been huge. The pass rush that Georgia's going to get. The defense has been absolutely relentless, and Zach Bailey, Jake Bentley called him his, quote, security blanket this week. I think it'll be up to Zach Bailey again to kind of protect Jake Bentley, protect the blind side, give Bentley time. They're going to be able to expose that pass defense. He's going to need 3 to 5 seconds to get it downfield. So I think it'll be absolutely key for Zach Bailey to have a good game on Saturday. Another guy I have, USC defensive lineman DJ Wanham against UGA quarterback Jake Fromm. Again, sort of the opposite, the flip side of things. If South Carolina is able to stop the rushing game, it's going to be up to the South Carolina defensive pass rush to make Jake Fromm uncomfortable. I've watched Jake Fromm a decent amount this year. He looks very comfortable. He's not under a lot of pressure. He's able to step back, plan on his back foot, get a lot of throws out. South Carolina's going to need to get in his face. I mean, make him uncomfortable. Make him get happy feet. Make him scramble a little bit. Make throws under pressure. So I think it'll be very key for that. Gamecocks to get that pass rush. And then my last one with the key matchups, which is a little bit the most basic, but USC linebackers against UGA running backs. I wanted to pick one out of each, but honestly, you've got Sonny Michel, you got Nick Chubb, you got Sky Moore, you got TJ Brunson, you got Sherrod Green. These are guys that have to step up for South Carolina and fill gaps. You didn't have Sky Moore last year. The Gamecocks lost 28-14. It's going to be a game where you're going to need a guy like Sky Moore to have a really big day. TJ Brunson have a really, really big day. Create a turnover. Set the tone on defense. Be able to plug a hole. So I think that'll be a very, very interesting matchup to watch. I think it'll be a matchup that kind of determines how this game plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all those 100%. I don't even know if I can add one to that. I'll just take those.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No,
mine's more of a key to the game.
Yeah. Go ahead. And I'll let you, moving into that, we'll talk about the keys again. I'll let you start with what some of your keys are.
I feel like Hayden Hurst is going to have to score multiple touchdowns. I mean, I think that's bold. I'm not predicting
Use
that,
him,
but
feed him.
Yes,
someone feed him.
Score multiple touchdowns because I don't think inside the red zone South Carolina's going to be able to run the ball. I just don't think that's plausible at this point. But he's also going to have to block. So I think they're going to have to trust the offensive line a little bit more. And just regular protection, and they're going to have to let Hayden Hurst go loose. He's pretty much become the guy that you just rely on, him and Brian Edwards. But I just feel like it's going to have to be Hayden Hurst for some reason.
No, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you in the sense that, I think you can't depend on yourself that you have to run. I think you have to, at some point, you have to kind of try to run the football, but you can't depend on it. You just can't. You can't rely on it. You know what I mean? One of my biggest keys to the game, Tyler, and we've talked about this kind of, I think, in other road matchups, but especially this one, you going to Athens, it's going to be madhouse. We know that. Thank goodness it's a 3:30 kickoff. Thank goodness it's not 7:30. Weather the storm early, whether the crowd's going to be jumping, it's going to be crazy. It's really going to be up to the South Carolina team to, they've got the choice either to feed the crowd or quiet them down. And it's going to be huge for them to be able to, kind of stop the madness, take the game under control, make this a ball game, get in at least the second quarter, maybe even halftime with a competitive score and sort of take the crowd out of it. My other key to the game, I said load the box. I'm going to skip that because I think we talked about that a little bit. But, Tyler, maybe my biggest key to the game is they've got to muddy the water. And what I mean by that is they got to get creative on offense. I don't know. Maybe a trick play has to come out. They got to get aggressive on defense. They got to create turnovers. They might have to make this a little bit of a sloppy game. To beat Georgia, you've got to kind of make this a little sloppy. You got to get Georgia out of their own game. Georgia has gotten into more spreading their offense out, spreading the ball. But they want to run the football. They want to work off the play action. It's Georgia. They do the same thing they've always done. You got to make this game a little bit sloppy. You really do. And you got to make this a South Carolina Will Muschamp type game. You've got to win the turnover battle. You've got to control the time of possession. You got to be able to control the line of scrimmage, things like that. And even, I think turnovers will be probably the biggest one of the things I just mentioned. But being able to muddy the waters, turn this into kind of your game, stick around for longer than you're supposed to, that's the win.
South Carolina's not going to beat Georgia in a shootout. That's just not going to happen. There's no chance of that.
No.
So, yeah, I agree 100%.
Absolutely. So, with that being said, Tyler, we're going to get into which should be one of the more interesting parts of this podcast, the predictions. Like we do every single week.
Whether they're good or bad, because I don't think
whether they're good or bad
at all season.
Whether they're good or bad, Tyler, I'm going to let you start. I'm very curious to hear what you have to say about this game. Gamecocks travel to Athens, 3:30 kick. It's a nationally televised, like you told me before this show. Georgia ranked number 1 in the playoff rankings, college football playoff rankings. So Gamecocks taking on the number 1 team in the country, basically. I'll let you take it away with your prediction.
All right. So all the stuff I just talked about, I don't think any of that's going to happen. Unfortunately, I just have that feeling it's going to get ugly. Not as bad as Clemson last year, but I do think it's going to get ugly. I have Georgia 37, South Carolina 10.
All right.
Georgia covers.
So Georgia covers. Georgia covers the 24 and a half. I've had obviously, like I told you before, Tyler, this is one of my favorite weeks of the year. I'm a huge Georgia hater. I hate Georgia so much. I'm not going to try to be unbiased. I hate the Georgia Bulldogs so much. I've hated them since I was probably 12 years old. I went to it's funny. I grew up in North Augusta, South Carolina, went to a church in Augusta, Georgia, which obviously was all dog fans. Just hated him. Hated him.
They're
Hated
the worst fans. That's not even debatable. So,
Hated David Green. Hated No Sean Marino. Hated Matt Stafford. Hated
David Pollock.
Pollock. Hated Thomas
man.
Davis. Hated all of them. Hated all of them. Their fans, obviously, that was kind of where it came from.
Remember when Pollock just took the ball out of Donjo Pinkett's hands?
I do. I remember that. It was Corey Jenkins.
Corey Jenkins. You're right.
Yes. So, yeah. So with that being said, it's been a long, bitter ride. It's honestly, it's one of those situations where I'm the kind of person where I'd have to really seriously think about would I rather beat Clemson or Georgia. It's that big of a rivalry for me, personally. But looking at this game, obviously 2017, we've had a lot of fun conversations with our CEO Andrew Stevens, who's a dog fan, a dog graduate. I've had some fun conversations with him this week. I haven't seen a Georgia fan's predictions less than 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, really, 3 touchdowns. I take a look at this game. I'm on both sides of it. I kind of feel what you're saying, Tyler. I look at this game, and last year when South Carolina was a 24-point underdog at Clemson, I feel like South Carolina would cover. I really did. I thought they'd come out spirited, fired up. I thought they'd cover. No chance Clemson's going to win by that much. Obviously, Clemson's win 56-7. Georgia last year, beats South Carolina 28-14. Obviously, they didn't have a great year. It's a completely different team, but I think this year South Carolina on a 3-game winning streak. The Bulldogs just got the number 1 ranking in the college football playoff rankings. 8-0, undefeated, looking to face Alabama in the SEC championship. Have Auburn next week. I'm going to sit here and predict. I don't think South Carolina goes on the road to Athens and gets the win. I just don't think right now it's reasonable to say that. I don't think it's because I think it's just overall depth. I just really don't think South Carolina is deep enough to go on the road and get that win. I think a lot of things will have to happen. I think South Carolina, again, will have to muddy the waters. I'm not saying it's impossible at all. I don't think it's impossible South Carolina gets the win. I think it's improbable. I think anytime you're a 24.5-point underdog, there's a reason. I think South Carolina's getting a little bit of disrespect. But again, the teams they've played, the conference record, I think that the teams they played, their conference record is they have like 1 win, maybe 1 win. But Georgia's have like 6. So I think it's around 6. So the Dogs don't have a great schedule either. But I will say I think the Gamecocks hang tight for a while. I think the Gamecocks get an encouraging loss. There's no such thing as moral victories. But I do think South Carolina will prove they are at least somewhat legit. I think Georgia gets the win. I'm going to say – I'll say it's 27 – Dogs 27. I'll say Gamecocks 14. So I think it'll be a little bit closer than everybody thinks. I do think South Carolina's going to hang around for a while. I'm seeing like a 21-14 score Georgia going to the 4th quarter. I think it'll be, closer than Georgia, too close for comfort for Georgia. But it's hard to predict South Carolina getting the win as much as they want to. I think Georgia will pull away for the W. But I think it'll be a very encouraging loss, if you will, for South Carolina. So, anyways, we'll get into the listener questions. We got a couple of them here. One from Reddit, the biggest and baddest. If you could choose, I feel like, Tyler, we've gotten this a million times. If you could choose, who would you rather beat? I'll ask you at this point in the season, who would you rather beat, Georgia or Clemson?
That's not even close. I'd rather beat Georgia. We could beat Georgia and lose 100-0 to Clemson. I wouldn't care. I mean that 100%.
That's very interesting. It's very interesting because of the simple fact that South Carolina could beat Georgia and still not win the East. So I'm kind of torn because if I beat Georgia and don't win the East, I'm kind of like, I might want the Clemson game, but
I've already chalked it up in my head to Clemson as a loss because I just don't think South Carolina.
I hate the Dogs.
I don't think they're there yet to beat Clemson or to expect to beat Clemson.
So let me ask you this. You think South Carolina has a better chance to beat Georgia at Georgia or Clemson at home?
Well, I think we have a better chance to beat Clemson, but I'm just not expecting that. I'm not expecting either one of them.
Right.
God, now it's just getting tougher. I'd still rather beat Georgia. Just because they're number 1 in the country. We haven't beat a number 1 team in 7 years.
Yeah, which is, hey, shit. The last time South Carolina played a number one team in Alabama, I mean, what were they saying before? South Carolina has been number one team since ever. So
We were ranked though.
we were ranked,
But that was also
and it was at home. It was also at home, and you also had game day.
But it was CBS.
And you also had Steven Garcia. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
But you had Alshon Jeffrey and Marcus Lattimore.
But you did have Alshon and Marcus Lattimore. Yeah, man. Here's the thing, Tyler. I want to talk myself into the Gamecocks winning this game so bad.
I can't.
I can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't do it. One part of me says to me though, I can't believe how good Jake Fromm looks. He's a freshman. He's a true freshman.
Yeah.
And he looks this good. If South Carolina, I'll tell you this. I'll make a bold prediction. If South Carolina holds Georgia to under 100 yards rushing in the game, they'll win the football game.
Oh, no, there's no doubt.
Not even a question.
I don't think that's possible. It's possible.
I don't know if it's possible.
But
if they do, they'll win the football game.
Oh, yeah.
Jake Fromm, and you know what? Honestly, if South Carolina did that and Jake Fromm had threw for 300 and Georgia blew him out, I would just tip my cap. I wouldn't even be mad. I'd tip my cap to him. I was thinking that today. I was like, you know what? If Fromm beats South Carolina,
tip your cap.
I'll tip my cap. But you can't let Michelle and Chubb beat South Carolina. You cannot. And even if you try to stop them, they still might beat you. So we'll see. Next question from Reddit. HUP asks us, UGA seems pretty strong based on results, but I honestly haven't watched them play all year. Are there any discernible weaknesses in their game? Doesn't seem so based on results. I'll kind of start with this one, Tyler. The one thing I saw, they had a very interesting game with Missouri at home, which they won by like 26 or something. But that game, like I said, was 28-28 late in the first half. Missouri showed the ability to throw the football down the field for sure. Throw it downfield, kind of expose the UGA secondary. I'm not sure that secondary has really been tested. So if there's one secondary to me, that front seven for Georgia is obviously filthy. But if there's a weakness to me, South Carolina has to be able to kind of expose. It's got to be with Jake Bentley and guys like you said, Hayden Hurst, Brian Edwards, Shai Smith, or Trey Smith. Those guys have got to play a huge role. As much as that running game needs to be a factor, they got to be able to throw the football down the field.
Yeah, that's about it. I don't think they're going to run the ball on Georgia. I just don't think they're ready for that yet. But the offensive line, if they play like they did on Saturday, possibly. But they'd have to play a really, really good game.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. I mean, that O-line, Zach Bailey, Corey Helms is going to have to play well. They're A-plus game. They're going to have to play their best.
It's better.
They got to play their best game. Yeah, they're going to play their best game. And then we're looking at our last question from Armchair Americans, Alex Reynolds, who's our Armchair Cruton guy and also our editor-in-chief. Shout out to Alex. His question, very simply, how much does it suck that Eason got injured? I'll take this one. I think Georgia fans are pretty happy about it, to be honest.
I think Eason's really good. I feel like
I think he is too. No, I think he – no. I think Georgia fans are happy. I think he's good. But I think Georgia fans – it's so funny. It's so funny how Georgia fans are. They were talking about Fromm even before the season when Eason was healthy. That's the funny thing. They were talking about Eason. So it's definitely very, very interesting to see for sure. I mean, I don't know. Eason won't be a factor in this game. Does it suck for South Carolina? I don't think it makes a difference. With that being said, we'll kind of, I guess we'll kind of wrap everything here. We'll kind of move into the little post show, Tyler. Again, the college football playoff rankings when it came out, we'll kind of go over those really quickly. Georgia took the top spot. Number 1, Bama number 2. Notre Dame comes in number 3. Clemson slides in number 4. Oklahoma 5. Ohio State 6. Penn State 7, TCU 8, Wisconsin, Miami, Oklahoma State, Washington, Virginia Tech, Auburn, Iowa State, Mississippi State, USC of the West, Southern Cal, UCF, LSU, NC State, Stanford, Arizona, Memphis, Michigan State, and Washington State. Tyler, are there any of those? Because obviously Bama is ranked number 1 in the coaches poll, number 1 in the AP. The playoff ranking has completely nothing to do with either one of those. Were you surprised Georgia was ranked number 1 over Alabama?
No, that one against Notre Dame is looking better every single week. Notre Dame looks like a pretty good football team. They dominated NC State the other day, and we have pretty decent regard for NC State.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, Notre Dame, it's just shocking.
I don't want to give them credit because I hate Notre Dame.
I didn't expect Notre Dame to be that good. I really didn't.
And I couldn't tell you one player on their team, but I watched them play just a tad bit because South Carolina played at the same time the other day. Every time it just looked like they dominated.
Yeah, then speaking of that NC State team, a really interesting game this week, which it's funny how the schedule has worked out this year, Tyler, because like I told you before, I haven't watched a single Clemson game, and this won't be a week that's any different. Clemson and NC State play at 3:30 this weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, and in Raleigh, should be a huge football game. It should be very, very, very interesting to see.
I watched a few Clemson games. They're very good.
Yeah, no, I know they're good. Don't get me wrong. Let me ask, did you watch the game Saturday night?
The Georgia Tech game?
Yes.
Not all of it, but I watched a bit of it.
Did Kelly Bryant play?
He did. He looked very good.
He did. Okay. I honestly,
it was a disgusting rainy game, which you feel like Georgia Tech would play well, but they couldn't move the ball at all against that defense.
Right. Yeah. So another thing I feel like we have to touch on: Jim McElwain let go at Florida. The Gators are without a head coach. Randy Shannon will be their interim head coach. Meanwhile, Will Muschamp is still coaching football for an SEC team.
So is Butch Jones.
So is Butch Jones, which is maybe the most laughable thing, the most absurd thing.
Don't you feel like Florida's just going to get the better head coach here?
Man. Yes and no.
I feel like it'd be so Tennessee for
they won the arms race as far as getting the opening first. But let me ask you this. Did you hear the interview that Dan Mullen's wife had with on a Mississippi State podcast? Did you hear that at all?
I did not.
So basically, Dan Mullen's wife went on this podcast and just talked about how terrible the people of Gainesville were to them, talking about just how awful they were, talking about, it wasn't about how much you want. She was talking about when they were winning national championships now with Urban Meyer. She was saying, she was talking about she would, go to the grocery store. She was like, it wasn't about if you won the game. It was about if you didn't score 43 points, people were, in your face, like asking questions. She was like, I'd have to leave. And Florida is getting into a very, very interesting place where it's like you're getting to a scary spot where it's like this sort of revolving door type deal where it's like, I know a good coach is going to take that job. It's Florida. Like, I get it. It's SEC. It's tradition. But there just seems to be this type of intimidation factor with the success Spurrier had. Spurrier's desk is sitting across from where the head coaches sit. One of the best moves maybe ever is the fact that Spurrier didn't want to stay at South Carolina. Can you imagine the pressure that Will Muschamp would have if Steve Spurrier was sitting in the same building as Will Muschamp? I mean, I thought about that. I was like, man, that is why did Zook fail? Ron Zook had no chance at Florida because he was filling the shoes of a legend. And he got kicked out. I mean, you think about it. I mean, I'm not saying McElwain should have stayed, but the man won 2 SEC East titles and got fired in his 3rd year. He couldn't have one bad year. I get all the other stuff that happened, but still, wow. I mean, just wow.
I feel like the death threat had a lot to do with it.
The what?
The death threat situation that he.
Yeah, I agree. No, like I said, there were a lot of other things, but man, I mean, it is
definitely a very interesting situation.
Very, very wild situation. And it's wild that a place like Florida could get a head coaching hire that wrong, honestly. I feel like we could have told you, like, Jim McElwain for the Florida job. Like, that doesn't feel right, But
it feels better as a South Carolina fan because, it wasn't Will Muschamp's fault that there's an offense there because their offense has gotten worse.
Exactly.
It is absolutely pathetic.
And the only reason that Florida won the SEC East is because of Will Muschamp's defensive recruits. Their defense was that good.
Absolutely.
So I guess that can also give you some positive feelings as well. Again, we talked about, Butch Jones. Tennessee, again, loses a heartbreaker to Kentucky. I think the score was, 29-26, I believe?
Yeah.
29-27, 29-26. Yeah, I mean, the groomers are circulating. John Gruden maybe
Absolutely not
taking that job. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he is either. But for some reason, those rumors are huge. Tennessee somehow again gets the night game with Southern Miss. There's a boycott on Twitter for Tennessee fans to empty Neyland. They do not even want to show up.
Oh man.
So
could you imagine if there's an empty Williams-Brice movement?
I can't imagine.
I can't imagine that possibly happening.
I just no. I can't imagine it.
We went 3-9, and that didn't happen. People still sold out.
We went 0-11.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Oh, that is worse.
I mean,
I only had 3 results, so I can't really talk in depth about 0-11. But I was there for 3-9, and that felt pretty bad.
Yeah. No, I was there too, and I was at that Clemson game. Yeah, I mean,
Sean Elliott lost to the Citadel, and people still sold out the Clemson game.
Yeah,
that would never happen in South Carolina. That's how much they hate Butch Jones. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's just wild to me that he's still there. I just don't understand. Like, I feel like some athletic administrations maybe feel like they believe in, hey, we should keep the coach there the full year. We really should. But why? Just why?
You have a former Michigan head coach ready to be interim.
Good point. It's a very good point. Very good point. I'll tell you this though: for South Carolina, take advantage. Take advantage. These recruits. I know Will Muschamp. I don't have to say it. I know Muschamp knows, but these recruits, man. What player in their? I was thinking this. What player in their right mind wants to go to Knoxville right now?
Yeah.
Who wants to go play for them?
And there's 2 guys that chose Tennessee over South Carolina. Just
you got
the last couple months.
Moore, and who's the other one? It's
Dorian Gerald.
Dorian Gerald. I mean, I wouldn't say this as Will Muschamp, but I want to be like, why in the world would you want to walk into this train wreck?
How about this one I thought about this morning
Why?
while I was in class? How about Hamza Nasruddin going to Florida State? They're 2-5.
They're terrible. They're terrible.
Awful.
They might not make a bowl game.
No, they absolutely not. There's no way.
Who do they play this week? I think Syracuse, maybe.
Oh, that's a loss. They're going to lose by 20.
And they play Syracuse at home, and think they're under.
They're going to lose that by 20.
Tickets are starting at $18. Anybody wants to go?
And Louisville lost to Wake Forest.
That ACC is a mess.
Outside of Clemson and Miami, it is and NC State, I guess it's a mess.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the SEC's a mess too. If you outside of it, Alabama,
no, it is. Without a doubt, it is
crazy.
I don't know if you've ever done this, by the way. I don't know if you were going to ESPN.com, look at the college football schedule, and it shows you the tickets and how much the tickets cost. It's funny to see, like, South Carolina, Georgia, the cheapest ticket's $123. You can go to UMass and Mississippi State for $2. There's a ticket for $2.
I remember a couple
Missouri, Florida. Missouri, there's a ticket for $5.
Holy crap. I remember in the ACC championship game a few years, I think Clemson was playing somebody. It may have been the North Carolina game. There was a ticket for like $3 to go to a championship game. It's insanity. Championship ticket for $3.
It's insanity, man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You can go to Arkansas, Coastal Carolina for $2. Even when South Carolina plays Coastal Carolina, there aren't $2 tickets.
It doesn't make sense.
There are not.
And against a 3-9 team, you couldn't have gotten a ticket for $2.
No, never.
Not even to the Citadel if you knew they were going to lose.
Even the Clemson game when they were 3-8, and you knew they were going to get killed. That ticket was like $100.
Yep,
it's ridiculous.
South Carolina, just the SEC in general, is a weird thing.
Yeah,
a team that's historically not good at all.
Tennessee Southern Miss tickets for $6.
That is insane.
Here's the funny thing. This has to be wrong. I'm looking at LSU Bama, and I'm pulling it up now, vividseats.com. Let's see. I'm pulling it up now. I want to get this right. I want to get this right. There ain't no way this is right. Ain't no way this is right.
There's a $4 seat at that game. I'm driving there right now.
Ain't no way this is right. Because this thing says it has a $7 ticket. There is no way.
At Bryant Denny or at Death Valley?
It's in Bama.
Oh, wow.
I don't think that's right because I'm seeing here $91.
It has to be clickbait.
It has.
Maybe all of that's clickbait, and we're just sitting here just.
Maybe I am. I don't know. Wait. Okay. Let's see. Scholarship Club Row. What is this? Maybe it's a student ticket? Row meal pass? I don't know. Anyways, I don't know. Either way, these tickets are ridiculous. I don't know why the hell ESPN would have them sitting on there. Vivid Seats might not be a very credible source.
There you go,
that too. But anyways. With that being said, yeah, it should be a fun week of college football. I know last week was fun. It should be another fun one. The Gamecocks again take on the Georgia Bulldogs, 3:30 CBS nationally televised game in Athens, Georgia. Between the hedges, the 8-0 Bulldogs, number 1 ranked in the college football playoff rankings, take on the South Carolina Gamecocks. Before we wrap it up, again, if you don't want to follow the show, be sure to check us on iTunes at the Spurs Up Show. Go there, rate, subscribe. Again, follow us on Twitter at Armchair S Car. Check out the Spurs Up Show there. Follow us on our Instagram page as well at Armchair S Carolina. And again, this is a podcast brought to you by the Armchair All-Americans, armchairallamericans.com, localizing your sports coverage content. Check us out, armchairallamericans.com, all your latest breaking Gamecock news coverage. The show, of course. With that being said, before we go, Tyler, I'll ask you, any other last words, anything you want to say before we get into Georgia week?
Yeah, if anyone's still listening at this point in the podcast, if you want to follow me on Twitter and watch me lose my mind for 3 hours on Saturday afternoon at Casper McLovin. Hit it up.
One of the greatest Twitter handles ever.
I try.
Really, ever. Casper McLovin. You can follow me as well at CPhilly19. We really get into it at Armchair S-Car for a lot of the fun hot takes and everything there as well. So, again, the Gamecocks travel to Georgia, take on the Bulldogs. Between the hedges, should be a fun one. As always, I'm Chris Phillips. He's Tyler Clark. We appreciate you guys listening. To hell with Georgia. We'll catch you next week. Have a good one.